Hello and welcome back to Redesigned Rose. My name is Jen. I am so glad you've joined me today for this tutorial. I absolutely adore this particular pattern for these crochet pumpkins. I'm going to show you just how easy it is to make these. I do have a tutorial out from last year when I did do these crochet pumpkins in the mini bean stitch. I also have a blanket in this stitch as well, which I can link both of those in the description below if you are interested in those. But this is just a different pattern. It is the same on how to make the pumpkins, but just a different pattern. Only materials that you're going to need for this project is going to be some yarn of your choice. And the hard part, I think, is just going to be choosing from all of the beautiful fall colors that are available right now. This particular yarn is called Hue Me. It is made by Lion Brand. It is a thick yarn. It is a number 5 bulky, and it is 80% acrylic and 20% wool, but it is really, really soft and silky and smooth on your hands as well as on your hook. You'll also need a pair of scissors, a tapestry needle. I am using a 5.5mm hook. And then of course you'll need some filling like a polyfill or something to stuff the insides of our pumpkins. Let's get started. Now these pumpkins are really easy to make. We're going to start out by crocheting rectangles. And you can play with the sizes as far as how large you want your pumpkin. The only difference that you're going to do is, of course, is chain on more and add more rows. Now I'm going to show you the medium-sized pumpkin pattern today, but I will put in the description below the size for my small pumpkin as well as the large, so that you'll know exactly how many chains I started and how many rows I worked for each one of those sizes. But really, you can't do this wrong. The only thing you're going to want to remember if you want to adjust your sizes is just to work this pattern in multiples of 2 or an even number. Okay, so to begin our pumpkin for the medium size, I am going to chain on 50, and I will add 1 at the end simply because the first 2 rows I'm going to work single crochet, and I want to make sure that I have 50 single crochets at the end of each of those rows. And I'll show you what that means in just a moment. So we'll go ahead and begin our chain. Okay, so I'm at the end of the first row. I've just worked up 50, and I'm going to add 1 more. And then what I'll do is, not in the first chain, but in the second chain, I'm going to start with a single crochet. I'm going to do 1 single crochet into each and every chain all the way to the end of the row. All we're doing is just inserting that hook into the chain, yarn over and pull up that loop, yarn over and pull through both. So I will go ahead and work this all the way to the end of the row and meet up with you in just a moment. Coming up to the end of my first row here, there's 2 more single crochets to do. Make sure you do go into that last chain with the slip knot. That does count. And I like to tighten my slip knot up just a little bit. Then go ahead and chain 1, turn our work. We're going to do another row of single crochets all the way across. So go ahead and work another single crochet into each and every stitch, beginning with that very first one. I'm going to do this all the way to the end of our row 2 here. And once again, I will work this off camera, and I will meet up with you in just a moment. Just make sure that when you are doing these single crochets in this row that you are going through that front and back loop. You do want to make sure that so when your hook goes through, you don't want to just grab a front loop, or you don't want to go in between and just grab a back loop. That'll be for something different. Today we're going through the front and back loop to create that single crochet. And I'll meet up with you in just a moment. Okay, so I'm at the end of row 2 here, and just wanted to make sure there is 2 more stitches to go into. You want to make sure again that you do have a total of 50 at the end of each row. All right, so for the next row, row 3, this time we will chain 2, turn our work, and we are going to work a double crochet into each and every stitch all the way down. We will be working double crochets for the rest of the pattern. We will just be working them a little bit different. Now to start this row, this chain right here will count as our first double crochet. So we don't need to go into that first space. We're going to come over here to the second one. So we will count that chain as the first double crochet, and this will be the second, and so forth all the way down. And once again, you just want to make sure you end up with 50, just to give that nice even rectangle and even edges to work with when we get ready to close up our pumpkin. So just double crochets all the way down. At the end of row 3 here, just got a couple more double crochets. So this is what your project should look like if you're following along the same pattern. We will once again chain 2, turn our work, and now like I said, we're still going to be doing double crochets all the way down. We're just going to do them a little different so that we can create these pronounced and recessed ridges that I just love so much in this pattern. So what we'll do, once again, that chain is going to count as our first double crochet, so we're not going to do anything with this. But if you pull these double crochets apart, you can see each one of these posts. And what we're going to do is we're going to alternate working with our hook behind and building a double crochet on top of it, which is called a front post double crochet. And all you do for that is just put your hook behind that post, yarn over and pull through, and then you finish your double crochet stitch just like that. And what that does is it raises that up and puts a double crochet on the top. Then we will alternate and do a back post double crochet. So we're going to yarn over, come to this next post, and we're going to come in from behind and on top of it and pull through. And sometimes it does fall off your hook. That's okay. Don't worry about it. You're not doing anything wrong. You'll want to pull your loop up so that it is even with the rest. Otherwise, it'll start to crunch your pattern here. So don't have it too tight down like this. Bring your loop up, yarn over, and finish your double crochet. We'll work a few more of those. Yarn over. So we just did a back post. Now it's time to do a front post. So we'll just come in behind there, pull up our loop, once again pull it up the same height, and finish your double crochet stitch. The next one we'll yarn over and come in from behind and finish the stitch. We're just going to keep doing this every other one. all the way down. And actually for the next few rows of the pattern. And what you can see is it's creating those raised ridges here, and it does the same exact thing on the other side, so it's completely reversible, which is fun. So once again, just come in from behind, pull up your loop, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. And then we're going to do the back post. So just same thing, pull up that loop and finish the double crochet. And it will probably feel awkward. These back posts are a little tricky sometimes, but you can do it. Sometimes as you can see, I'm folding my work here just to get that loop up, and then I'll pull it back out and finish my stitch. Sometimes that's a little easier, but you can do whatever works best for you, whatever feels more comfortable for you. These front posts are a little easier. You don't have to wiggle your hook around and behind. And if you are a beginner at this, don't worry about speed right now. The speed will come. I know I always say that in all of my tutorials. Don't focus on your speed. Just focus on trying to get this muscle memory down. And then once your muscles can remember what they're supposed to do, it won't feel so awkward. So I'll finish working up my front and back post double crochets all the way down off camera, and then I will meet up with you in just a moment. Okay, I'm coming up on the end of my row, and I just worked a back post double crochet. So this next one is going to be a front post. And then on the very end, what I like to do is you can either go into the top chain or just simply go in through this space to complete the last double crochet. It's completely your preference. Since we're going to be seaming up the ends of this anyway, I'm not too worried about that super finished edge, so I'll just make it easy and go right in there. And then what we'll do, once again, chain 2, turn our work. And again, as you can see, it does do the same exact thing on the opposite side. And what we're going to do is continue to do exactly what we did. So this, obviously on the other side, was a front post, but when we turn it over, we're going to look at it, it's now a back post double crochet. So that is, we've done our chain, that's going to count as the first. So we're going to go to this one, and we're just going to match what we did on the row before. So that's going to be our back post. This one here is a front post. I'm going to work this on top, and all it's going to do is just extend that post vertically all the way up to the top of our row, and eventually to the top of our entire rectangle that will become a pumpkin. So again, front post. So I'm just going to continue to do this, and a back post, and so as you can see, it just continues that post on either side all the way up. I'm going to continue to work this up, and when I get to the next row, once again, I'm going to continue to do the same thing. Just keep matching the front and back post double crochets, and I'll let you know how many rows I've worked up, and then we will end the top of the rectangle with 2 rows of single crochet before we fold up and turn into our pumpkin. All right, so as you remember, the very first 2 rows we worked up rows of single crochet, so that was rows 1 and 2. And then if you spread these apart, you can see this is just a way to count your rows if you haven't been counting as you've been going along. But each one of these vertical lines here represents the number of rows. So we do have our row 1 and 2 of the single crochet, and then I did 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10 rows of the alternating front post and back post double crochets. And now what I'll do is 2 rows of single crochet to match right here on the top. That way the pumpkin will also be reversible front or back. And all this does right here, just so you know, is this pattern right here is just going to make bringing this together a little less bulky and a little more flat right in this part. It'll be easier to cinch together when we get ready to do that magical part. So once I get to the end of this row, I will just chain 1 this time, since we're going to be doing single crochets. And this one we're just going to do single crochet right here into the very first stitch and to each and every stitch all the way across. And I will go ahead and work up both of those rows off camera, and I'll meet back with you where we get to turn this rectangle into a pumpkin. Worked up all of my rows, and I've worked up 2 rows of single crochet so that it does match on the top and the bottom. And I'm going to go ahead and cast off here. I like to go ahead and just tie that into a little knot. It is time to put the crochet hook away. We won't be needing that. What we will do, and again, because this is completely reversible, just pick your favorite side that you would like to be on the outside of the pumpkin and put it on the inside. Sometimes if I have run out of yarn in one of my patterns, and I'll just go ahead and tie on a new skein and leave the tails on the inside of the pumpkin, totally fine. That's why, again, this pattern is so forgiving and so easy. Now what I'm going to do is just grab some yarn here. Nothing that I've measured. What I'm going to do is go ahead and weave this in and out across here, and then we're going to close up this side. So I just want to make sure I have enough yarn to do that part at this time. One of the things I'll do is go ahead and just tie this onto one of my tails. When you're threading these tapestry needles, sometimes getting this bulky yarn to go through is really difficult, especially when it's multiple strand like that. So I'm going to show you my trick that works almost every single time. If you just fold your yarn over the top of your needle long ways like this, pinch it tight, then take your needle and go over that fold, it goes through so easy. So hopefully that's a helpful tip for you. Now what I want to do, because these very end turning chains can get a little curly, they like to curl in, you just want to kind of make sure that we have those lined up. And all we're going to do is weave all of this back and forth. And again, this is going to go on the inside of the pumpkin, so don't overthink it, guys. Just have fun with it. Just get to your goal of binding these 2 edges together without any big holes. So we don't want our stuffing to come through. This is a little tricky to show you on camera here because I've got the camera in my way, so I apologize. It's much easier to do than I'm making it look. And so just weaving back and forth. Whenever I'm joining edges of anything, I always want to make sure I go all the way to the very end. So that way you can assure that something's not going to pull apart. It's a good habit to get into as well, especially when you're joining, say, brim of a beanie hat or something like that. That way, again, this will just, once we tie this off, it's really going to make sure that that edge right here is going to stay nice and even. And what I'll do at this point is I'm going to go ahead and tie this because I want to secure my tension, and I'll tell you exactly what I mean by that. So we're going to take this yarn now, and what we'll do is go around the edge here to close this up. And while I'm pulling on that, I don't want it to pull on this. So by anchoring that yarn right here, I can help control that tension so that when I pull this closed, it's just going to pull here and not down here. I hope that makes sense. And this is where the magic starts to happen and we start to see pumpkins. This is my favorite part. So each one of these chains here, or stitches, depending on if this is my top or bottom, you're just going to weave your needle back and forth and pull through. We're going to do this all the way around. Don't worry about gaining each and every stitch. The bigger the pumpkins are, you actually want to start skipping and doing every other chain. Otherwise, when you try to pull it tight, it'll be too bulky at the very center. But the smaller pumpkins, we can get these closer together. Just pull that all the way through. So here is where we started, so I'm just about there. And then what I like to do is come all the way to that very first one so I can make sure that that does close completely. All right, so we will pull this all the way through, and the fun part is pulling this closed. And I'm going to leave this tail here because we're going to turn this inside out, or right side out, I should say. And I want this to hang out on the inside of the pumpkin instead of the outside. What I'll do is cut the rest of this off and use this tail once again. And just another tip for you, if you want to tie some really secure knots, the way that I'll do it is always take your right over your left and tie that down, and then take your left and go back over your right. So you're using that same piece of yarn, and I guarantee you those are the tightest knots that will not come undone. But we've closed that up. Now we can turn this. It actually looks like a little miniature beanie hat, which is super fun, or a bowl. And so again, we just hide all those tails in there. There's no need to cut them off unless you really want to. Now what we'll do is take some of our polyfill and just place in there. One of the things I like to do is spread a hole towards the center, because we're going to be guiding our tapestry needle down through the center, and sometimes depending on how much of this polyfill you put in, it can be a little bit of a battle to get that tapestry needle and yarn through. So I just kind of keep that in mind. Now you can stuff these as full or as sparse as you want. It's totally your preference. Now the hole is obviously not going to stay, but by working that, it will be in there. But I think that looks good enough. And we'll stuff it a little bit more, why not? I've got a little bit left here, so we'll just use it all up. The more you stuff these, the firmer your pumpkin is going to feel, the less, obviously, the more squishy. And depending on if you really don't put enough, your pattern can get a little wrinkly in there. So it's best to put it on the more full size. Sometimes I just judge by how I just did, how much I have left. All right, so now we're going to do the same thing that we did on the bottom. We're going to go ahead and weave through and close this up. And then I'm going to show you how to get these extra ridges in the pattern. So once again, I'll show you that trick here. Just fold this over your needle and pinch it tight. Take the needle and place it over the fold, and in it goes. And then what I can do is grab one of the tails here and just join my yarn on. Once again, right over left, left over right. Tie that down. And these will hide in here. There's no need to cut them off. I'll just do the same exact thing. All right, so I'm just about back at the beginning, but I don't want to forget these, so I'm going to kind of overlap to that very first one. Sometimes that polyfill wants to try to come out while I'm pulling the yarn, so I'll just grab that and push it back in. All right, so magic time. I'll get the rest of that in just a second. Back in you go. Okay, so now it is your preference. Sometimes you can leave a small hole to insert your cinnamon stick if you're going to go ahead and put a stem on this, or you can pull it all the way closed if it'll let you. If it doesn't let you and you want it all the way closed, one of the things that I'll do is take my tapestry needle and I'll put a few stitches across each way just to help close that up a little bit more. This one will not have a cinnamon stick, so because it's going to be, I'm going to have a smaller pumpkin stacked on top, so I don't want the stem in the way. But just do this a couple of different ways. And I'm just picking a spot, going under that ridge. And pulling that closed, as you can see. So now you are more than welcome to leave your pumpkin just like this. Or if you want to get some extra ridges, and as you can see, this is the seam of where we joined. I'm going to go ahead and put a ridge right down here to help hide that. I think first I will tie this off so it doesn't open up on me. So what I'll do is I'm going to take my needle, I'm going to go straight down through the center. And again, having that polyfill out of the way really helps. And I'm going to make sure that comes out through the center. And I'll pick that joining area first because that's the one I do want to hide. And as you can see, that just creates that little ridge by pulling it tight. I'm going to go back down the center. And the more you do this, the easier it is to navigate that needle through. And then I'm going to come across on the complete opposite side. We'll come right back through there. So I've come across this way. Now I'm going to go this way, almost creating 4 quarters. But of course, I can't leave those 4 quarters because I don't think that looks like a natural pumpkin. So first I'm going to just guide my yarn in between those ridges, come across on the opposite side here. So to me, you can leave it like this if you like. I tend to think that it looks a little unnatural. So what I like to do is make this uneven by going diagonal 1 time. So pull this one in and this one. And so I have some bigger, bulkier ends here, some smaller ones here, just to make it look more like a natural pumpkin. And then what I'll do, because I like to finish up here at the top, just in case this needs to be camouflaged a little bit more, I'll finish off a few more stitches just to close it further now that I know I'm done going through that area. And since I pulled it so tight, I do have to fight with it a little bit, but it's not terrible. So I just want to get my needle as low as I can get it. Grab a spot to hook the yarn that'll be nice and strong. And then come to an opposite side. Now, if you are using a smaller yarn, you will likely not have to do this part. This part is usually just because this is a bulky yarn. And again, we did the single crochet right up here to make this easier, but you can still see how the pumpkin did not want to close all the way. So this is just my workaround for getting that bulky yarn to behave. And then I'll just tie a knot or 2. And nobody will ever be the wiser. Then we can go ahead and snip that off. Push that down in there, and your adorable pumpkin is finished. And as I mentioned, these are perfect for stacking. So if I have a coordinating color, I can just put right on top. This is 2 different patterns here, but hey, that's fun too. Or you can do the smaller pumpkin this size to stack on top in these colors. But I just think that these are so much fun, and so they're just, to me, very vintage looking, and I think they're cute enough to leave up all the way until January. They're perfect for Halloween, for Thanksgiving, and Christmas. So for the entire season, you can have these up, match your decor in your home, so it doesn't look like a quote-unquote holiday decoration. Or you go out, you have some fun, you do some orange and black for Halloween, you do some, glittery gold for Christmas. The sky is the limit. The creativity is all yours. I hope this video was helpful, my friends. I'm so glad you joined me. Until next time.